There's something your partner has never said out loud. It's not a secret. It's not something they're hiding from you. It's something deeper. Something that lives in the quiet spaces between your conversations. In the way they hesitate before they speak. In the questions they ask that seem almost too specific. In the decisions they make that, if you look closely enough, seem to be quietly building around you. Today, we're not talking about the obvious signs. We're not talking about meeting the parents or saying I love you. We're going into the psychology, the neuroscience, the behavioral science that reveals what someone truly means when they see a permanent future with you. And the most fascinating part? Most of the time, they don't even realize they're showing you. Stay with me, because some of what I'm about to share will completely change how you read the person you love. Let's start with something so subtle you've probably missed it 100 times. Not what your partner says, but how they say it. Linguists who study long-term couples have found that one of the most reliable predictors of commitment isn't a declaration of love. It isn't even a proposal. It's a single word. A pronoun. When someone mentally includes you in their future, they stop saying I and start saying we, even in the most ordinary sentences. Not I should get a bigger apartment someday, but we'll probably need more space eventually. Not I want to travel to Japan, but we'd love Japan, wouldn't we? This shift isn't deliberate. They're not thinking about it. Their brain has already written you into the story, and the language just follows. But it goes even further than that. Pay attention to when they talk about the future, and it involves inconveniences. Real future planning isn't just about dreams, it's about friction. Someone who casually says, if we ever moved abroad, your mom would have a hard time with the time difference. That person has already run the simulation. With you in it. They've imagined the logistics, the complications, the trade-offs, and they stayed. That's commitment. And then there's something researchers call anticipatory nostalgia. This is when someone looks at a present moment and already feels the future loss of it. Your partner might say something like, I know we're going to look back on this time and miss it, while you're still in the middle of it. That sentence means they are emotionally living in a future that already includes you. They're not wondering if you'll be there. They're already grieving the version of today that won't last forever. Now let's talk about something your partner's body is doing, completely beyond their conscious control. There's a phenomenon studied by relationship researcher Dr. Sarah Algo called physiological linkage. When two people are building a serious long-term bond, their nervous systems begin to synchronize. Heart rate, cortisol levels, sleep cycles. They start to regulate each other biologically. Your partner's body isn't just attracted to you. It's become calibrated to you. This is why when you leave for a few days, they sleep worse. Why when you're stressed, they can feel it before you've said a word. Their body has built you into its baseline. And here's the one that stopped me when I first read it. Psychologists have found that partners who are truly serious about a future will, at some point, often quietly, often alone, begin to think about your death before theirs. Not out of fear, not out of morbidity, but because their mind has constructed a world so thoroughly built around you that it naturally asks, what would I do if something happened to them? They've started planning for grief before there's any reason to. That's not darkness. That's the deepest form of love the subconscious knows how to show. And then there are their dreams, not the dramatic ones, not the romantic ones, the ones where you're just there, running errands together, having an ordinary conversation, sitting in a kitchen neither of you owns yet. Psychologists note that dreaming of a partner in mundane, everyday settings reflects the unconscious mind integrating them into ordinary life. Not into fantasy, into reality, into the expected, familiar future. There's a concept in relationship psychology called the Michelangelo effect. And it is one of the most beautiful, least talked about ideas in all of relationship science. The theory goes like this. Just as Michelangelo believed the sculpture already existed inside the marble, and his job was simply to reveal it, committed partners unconsciously sculpt each other toward their ideal selves. Not through big conversations, not through demands or expectations, through thousands of tiny, invisible behavioral nudges over time. They encourage the version of you that you've always wanted to become. They gently move you away from the versions that diminish you. And they do all of this without ever calling it what it is. If you feel like you've been slowly, quietly becoming more of who you always wanted to be since this person entered your life, pay attention to that. It didn't happen by accident. It happened because someone looked at you and decided, silently, that the best version of you was worth helping into the world. That's not just love. That's a long-term investment in a person you intend to be next to for a very, very long time. Let's talk about the details they notice that they have no logical reason to notice. Someone who sees a future with you starts maintaining relationships with your fringe people. Not just your best friends, but your weird cousin they met once at a family dinner 3 years ago. Your college roommate whose name came up in a single story. They remember. They ask about them. They tend to the edges of your world because they understand at some level that loving you means loving your entire ecosystem. They also begin asking about your childhood in unusually specific detail. Not how was growing up, but questions like, what did your summers feel like as a kid? Or what did your house smell like? Attachment researchers note that this kind of granular, textured curiosity about someone's early life is often unconscious preparation, the brain building a complete portrait of a person it plans to stay with. And yes, sometimes quietly assessing, long before any conversation about children, what kind of parent this person might one day be. And watch what happens to their future self in their own imagination. They picture a future version of themselves. And that person listens to music you introduce them to, eats at places you love, uses phrases you use. Identity fusion doesn't begin in a conversation. It begins in the imagination, quietly, privately, months or even years before anyone says a word about a shared future. Now here's one of the most counterintuitive signs of all, and it's hiding inside your arguments. Pay attention to what you fight about. Couples who are unconsciously building a future together stop fighting about values and start fighting about logistics. The argument shifts from, do you even want a family? To whose family do we visit for the holidays? That shift is everything. It means you've already passed through the gate. The future together is assumed. Now you're just negotiating the details inside it. The argument itself is the sign. Relationship researcher John Gottman spent decades studying what separates couples who last from those who don't. One of his lesser-known findings is about what he calls repair attempts, the small moves partners make to de-escalate a fight. Early in relationships, repair attempts are generic. An apology, a hug, let's move on. But in couples building toward a real future, the repair attempts become deeply personalized over time. They invent moves that only work for you specifically. An inside joke deployed at exactly the right moment. A specific phrase you both know means, I still love you, even right now. They've been studying you. They've learned how to reach you in a way no one else could. That's not just conflict resolution. That's the work of someone building something they intend to last. Money is one of the most honest languages a person speaks, and most people never think to listen to it. When someone begins making financial decisions that only truly make sense with a partner, that's a signal worth noticing. Quietly restructuring their savings in ways that leave room. Adjusting long-term financial plans and almost mentioning your name in the same breath before stopping themselves. These aren't grand gestures. They're quiet, practical, unsentimental acts of preparation. They're building the foundation of a life, and in their mental blueprint, you are already in it. Watch also for what they stop optimizing for. Early in relationships, people perform. They show the best, most curated, most impressive version of themselves. But partners who are planning a long future start performing less. They let you see them stressed, boring, unglamorous, exhausted on a Tuesday night with nothing interesting to say. This isn't them getting comfortable in a bad way. This is them quietly auditioning their everyday self for a role in your everyday life. They're no longer showing you the highlight reel, they're showing you the whole film. Because they need to know if you'll stay for all of it. There's a specific kind of story your partner tells that most people don't realize carries enormous meaning. It's not the impressive story. It's not the vulnerable trauma. It's the embarrassing one. The story from 15 years ago that still makes them cringe. The one where they looked naive, or foolish, or completely out of their depth. Vulnerability researchers have found that when someone begins sharing those specific, unflattering stories, the ones they've never quite gotten over feeling awkward about, it signals deep long-term intention. Those stories are precious. They're the kind you only give to someone you trust to hold them carefully for a very long time. They're not just sharing their history, they're handing you a piece of it to keep. And alongside that, notice when they stop pushing against your consistent no. Not because they've stopped caring, but because they've started building a sustainable model of a life with you. They've learned your recurring limits. They've stopped testing them. Repeated, genuine boundary respecting isn't passive. It's long-term signaling. It means they're not just trying to win you anymore, they're trying to understand how to live with you. None of these signs come with a label. None of them arrive with a speech or a declaration. They come in small moments, ordinary conversations, and the quiet architecture of a life being built around you. Sometimes before anyone has spoken a single word about the future. The person who sees a forever with you might not have said it yet, but they've already started building it. In the pronouns they use, in the dreams they have, in the arguments about logistics rather than values, in the embarrassing stories they hand you to hold, in the way their nervous system has learned to regulate around yours, in the edges of your world they quietly tend to, in the version of yourself you've become since they arrived. You don't always need the words. Sometimes, if you know where to look, the evidence is already everywhere. If this gave you something to think about, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And I'll see you in the next one.